This is the Audi Q7. It's what 100,000 euros with Audi gets you. And in this review, we're going to be talking about whether you should buy a Q7 or a Q8. Also, the one small problem I actually do have with this Q7. And I know what you're thinking, what is that colour? It is called Sahkir Gold, and it is beautiful. As we mentioned, this specific car costs about 100,000 euros. It's a plug-in hybrid and has some nice optional extras. So the base price is about 93 grand. Then you add in the black pack, the keyless entry, the super sport seats, the turbine style 21-inch alloy wheels, and all of a sudden you're at about 100,000 euros. Now where this gets really interesting is if you got a diesel version for the exact same spec would cost about 20,000 euros extra. And that's thanks to our lovely VRT system. Here is the silky smooth 3-litre petrol V6 engine, and it's actually paired with an electric motor, which is powered by a 22 kilowatt hour gross battery. Now what that means is you should be able to drive on electricity alone around town for up to 85 kilometers. Now in the real world, this actually had 66 kilometers with a full charge, which to be fair is very respectable. And if you live in most commuter towns in Ireland, you should be able to get in and out of a big city, which is absolutely fabulous. And actually charging that at home should take just under 4 hours. And whilst I love that because it gives it extra power, 600 newton meters of torque, 388 brake horsepower, it does come with one massive issue. And that problem is that it does leave you in a weird place between choosing whether to buy a Q7 or a Q8. Let me explain. Q8 is a 5-seater, it's a little bit more sporty, it's also a little bit shorter and not quite as tall as the Q7. However, the advantage in why you might choose to get a Q7 would be for 7 seats. However, if you get the plug-in hybrid, well, all the plug-in hybrid stuff happens under here, which means you can't have 7 seats, which kind of makes it a tough decision whether you're going to go for a plug-in hybrid Q7 or a plug-in hybrid Q8, or do you just get a good old-fashioned diesel and you can have 7 seats? See the conundrum? So to drive, the first thing I'm going to show you is how unnaturally quick this is for a large SUV. So put it into sport mode and off we go. It is outrageously quick, 388 brake horsepower. It does 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.7 seconds. It's got 600 newton meters of torque. It just doesn't make sense. Now that is all well and good and lovely for me who's driving for a week, but in the real world, let's talk about that. To begin with, I actually think if you're driving this car, like a lot of people do, most of your time will be spent in pure EV mode, and you can actually put it in that so that you're just using the electric motor. Now, as we mentioned earlier, you should be able to get in the real world 50 to 70 kilometers depending on the weather conditions and a few other factors. And in that scenario, that is an excellent way to travel around. You won't really find you need to use that petrol motor at all, but if you do, then you can actually hold the battery percentage. So let's say, for example, you're driving from the country down to a city. You want to drive in the country roads with your petrol engine, but then the second you get into the city, you then want to be low emissions, you can convert it into pure EV, which is just cool, and it's something that we see in a lot of PHEVs, but it is worth noting. The other thing I'm going to demonstrate now is when you go over the speed limit, like a lot of cars, it does make that noise. I'm currently going 51 in a 50, so I know I'm technically speeding, but I don't think that's really warranted. It does also have lane assist, adaptive cruise control. It is brilliant in that way, and you kind of expect nothing less from an Audi of this caliber, but it does a brilliant job of it. And I will say the size of it, it is big. And one thing I wish it kind of has would be a better reversing camera. This one's a little bit low quality. In fact, a 360-degree camera would be brilliant, because getting this in and out of somewhere like Dundrum Town Centre or any big shopping centre where there's big curbs could be a little bit tight. Now lastly, I want to talk about air suspension, because it's got it and it's fantastic. It's something that I think a lot of us know Range Rover have truly excelled in, and if you want to go another step above that, obviously Rolls-Royce, but they've done a fabulous job of it here in the Q7. It is so smooth. You can also rise and lower your height, but it's just wafts along the roads, and particularly now on these mountainous roads here in Dublin Wicklow area, you just find it very comfortable and it absorbs every little imperfection. But as a whole, it is lovely to drive. The interior is a lovely place to sit, most noticeably because this has the Super Sport seats, which are extremely comfortable. They're about a €1,400 optional extra, but if you're spending €100,000, what is another 1.4% increase in the price? Definitely worth it. Steering wheel in true Audi fashion is lovely, and there's the digital display up ahead, which you can customize exactly how you like. You can put your maps in there. That is brilliant. Then you've actually got two more screens here. So first is your infotainment system, and obviously Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connects up there. And it's pretty intuitive, but also down here, you've got a haptic feedback for your climate control. How do I feel about this? In many ways, it's nice that it's not buried in here in the infotainment system, but at the same time, I love what they've done in the e-tron GT, for example, and actually gone back to the old school knobs, which is brilliant. But it is worth saying there is a volume knob there. There's also cup holders here. Then in here, one thing I love about Audi cars is there's always a bit of storage in here, and there's a wireless charger in there too, as well as two USB-C charge points. So as a whole, it's a lovely place to sit, very comfortable. It would benefit from a panoramic sunroof, but beggars can't be choosers, and truthfully, it's a lovely place to sit. In the rear, as you can imagine, it is a very comfortable place to sit. There's loads of knee room, and actually the seats can move forwards and backwards, so if you do need to improve your boot space, you can do that. There's also 3 ISOFIX points in here, so you can have 3 child seats, which is brilliant, particularly for all the people having triplets out there. And there is a armrest here, which is really easy to open up and has some nice cup holders. But what's more is, I have to give a shout out, there is a nice place to hang suits here. They've done both types of hooks, which is really brilliant. And another big one is that there's air vents both here, and independently controlled climate control back here, which is lovely. And then just to finish off, there's 2 12-volt sockets, which is quite strange. But as a whole, a lovely place to sit. If you're into boots, this could be the boot for you. So first of all, you know that swipe feature that everyone fits in their car and it never works? It actually works in the Q7. Electronic tailgate, and in here 650 litres, and there's no load lip here, which is really handy for getting things in. The only negative side of that is you actually can't open this at all, which means no spare wheel, nowhere to put your chargers. However, realistically, you'll probably put them in your utility room at home because there's no need for them in the car. It is a plug-in hybrid. Now, other cool features, the seats fold in a 33.3 way, so each seat can be folded down individually, which is brilliant. There's a little bit of storage in here, but everything's electronic. So if you've got an old dog, for example, and you want to get it into the car nice and easy, you can actually drop the air suspension there at a touch of a button, which is really nice. And even things like the parcel shelf are electric. So look what happens when we close the boot. When the original Q7 came out in about 2006, 2007, I was a young lad, and this was the pinnacle of Audi SUV, and it would only do me to one day have one, or at least get to drive one, and it hasn't let down. And because of that experience as a child, I actually think I would probably go out and buy a Q7 over a Q8, even in a plug-in form without having 7 seats, because I do think it just has a certain presence to it, which is lovely. And if you do want 7 seats, it is possible, but you're not going to be able to get the plug-in hybrid. The good old saying, you can't have your cake and eat it. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this review. If you have, then please make sure to subscribe. Let us know in the comments what car you'd like to see us review in the near future. But for now, that's it from us. So you can check out Audi's for sale up there, and we'll see you in the next one.